So hello friends, in the last video we have talked about the part 1 of the Corynebacterium diphtheria. We will be proceeding the same topic in this video. So let us share the screen. Yeah. So yes, talking about this Corynebacterium diphtheriae, we talked about that there was gravis, there was intermedius, and there was mitis. Okay, and we said we should have what for the cultivation of the Corynebacterium. We will be using some selective media. We will be using some enriched media. Enriched media we said Lafleur slope, and selective media we said potassium tellurite, and we said it gets converted to metallic tellurium, isn't it? And we said it is catalyst positive, it is oxidase negative, it is it ferments sugars. What was the sugar? His serum sugar solution. And nitrate reductase was positive, urease is negative. And we said urease test is not only for the H. pylori infection, it is actually helping us in differentiating Corynebacterium ulcerans and Corynebacterium pseudotuberculosis. Then we said we have three we have gravis biotypes, isn't it? Gravis, GIM. So gravis, intermedius, and mitis. So see, guys, how I remember. Please look at me. Daisy head, frog's egg. Make a rhyme. Post egg. What was this, sir? It is not a rhyme. This is actually the colony, the morphology of the colony, the colony shapes, the arrangement it gives. So it gives a daisy head appearance, it gives a frog's egg appearance, and it gives a posted egg appearance. Daisy head, frog's egg, post egg. Easy. Next thing you have to remember from this mitis and intermedius is that next thing you have to remember from this, if you can remember, is the toxinogenic strain, or you can remember the can it is it hemolytic, you can remember that. Okay, so hemolytic, let's just 2 points about this. So hemolytic, talking about the hemolysis, it shows us variability. It is a variability, it's not having any constant way that we can describe it, a variability. But intermediate is definitely what? Non-hemolytic non hemolytic Mitis hemolytic. This is all you can remember about this. Okay, no need to go into detail. There are so many things in microbiology I'm actually trying to cover from the exams and all point of view. Okay, so this is what you have to remember. uh, Talking about the virulence is important, which you have not read. So let us start. So virulence, talk about the virulence. The virulence of the bacteria of this Corynebacterium is diphtheria toxin. Diphtheria toxin. This diphtheria toxin, what is this diphtheria toxin? What is special? We need to first know the mechanism. How this toxin will work. Okay, how this toxin will work. So we write in short DT. Okay, DT. So this DT is made up of is equal to A plus B. DT is made up of A plus B. A is known as A for not my name, active unit. B for binding unit. B for binding unit. So what happens, for example, this is my cell and diphtheria toxin is coming to me. What will happen? That this B, it has two fragments now. DT has two fragments, A and B. So what will happen? This B will attach to my cell, binds to my host cell, isn't it? It has a receptor. Your host cell has a receptor, isn't it? Like epidermal growth factor. Okay, you have epidermal growth factor receptor, epidermal growth factor receptor on your cell, epidermal growth factor receptor. So what happens? This B component will bind to the this part. Now will it help when it binds like no an injection? No, you inject something. So will the A now insert very nicely fragment A? Will it help in the entry of fragment A? Now what will happen? This A goes inside the cell. Now this A is inside the cell. A has gone inside the cell. This is known as process of internalization. Internalization. This process is known as internalization. The way when the process in which the B fragment is actually helping the entry of fragment A into the host cells is called internalization. Now what will happen? There will be ADP ribosylation inside. ADP ribosylation. ADP ribosylation of which factor? There is a factor inside that is elongation factor 2. So think that you are doing what? ADP ribosylation to this factor. ADP ribosylation. Okay, ADP ribosylation to this factor. So once you are doing this ADP ribosylation, I want to tell you first what EF2 was normally doing in the cell. This elongation factor 2 was helping in the protein synthesis, was keeping the cell alive, was keeping the cell alive. What will happen once you attach ADP ribosylation, once you do ADP ribosylation of elongation factor 2, this elongation factor 2 will get inhibited. This elongation factor 2 now gets inhibited. Can the cell live? No. Can the protein synthesis happen? No. Can the translation happen? No. No, it is inhibiting the translation. Will not happen. Will the cell die? So this will finally lead to cell death. This will lead to cell death. Okay. Is there a problem? So can we make it in an arrow form? Can we make it in an arrow form? So what happens? First I should write, in one line. If I want to prepare for any step exam, any exam, this one line should be revised before entering the exam hall. What? Only one. In one line, the whole mechanism should be written. What? You have to write like this. How to write? Diphtheria toxin is equal to A plus B. A means active. B means binding. This is you can understand. Now make a cell. Now put B. Then put A inside. Okay. It was DT. A B. Now B bound. And A is entering inside. Now this A, what will happen? What will happen? A will do ADP ribosylation. ADP ribosylation. Elongation factor 2, which leads to inhibition of elongation factor 2, which leads to decrease or inhibition of protein synthesis inside the cell, which will lead to cell death. This one statement will make a difference. Any question asked from any point, you'll be able to answer. Elongation factor, sir, how to remember? Elongation means prolong my life. Elongation factor means prolong my life. My life is not now prolonged. What I'm getting inhibited? I'm getting inhibited. Cell death. Cell death. Okay. Remember one thing, there is a concept of pathogenicity in diphtheria. What is the concept? It is saying that if you see any corynebacterium, it's not that with every corynebacterium you will have an infection, diphtheria. It's not like that. It's not like that. Okay. Sir, what is like that? Then the thing is, you should explain what is like that. If I have a C. diff, this is a C. diphtheria bacteria. Let me make a fake flagella here. There's some pili. If I have a tox gene, what tox gene in any bacteria, and that is transferring by the genetic pathway, it is giving what phage mediated, if I have a beta phage mediated toxin gene, remember, if this is X, this is Y, this is X bacteria, this is Y bacteria. Now this X bacteria has what? Tox gene. Now this X bacteria is giving through the phage, lysogenic conversion, for example. Let me take lysogenic conversion. Do we remember the lysogenic conversion from the microbiology? So by lysogenic conversion, I am giving what? I am converting this bacteria into pathogenic, isn't it? Because we said transduction happens with how? Transduction actually happens with the bacteriophage. Transduction, isn't it? Bacteriophage mediated. So this is how things are going on. Okay. Now this diphtheria toxin is very, let me talk about this toxin now again. This diphtheria toxin. Now this DT toxin is having a very high potency. This DT toxin is having a very high potency. Okay. The potency, what do you mean by the potency? The amount of dosage. The amount of dosage required to produce a lethal effect. The amount of dosage required to produce a lethal effect. Okay. So it is around, I think, 0.1 microgram per kg. So you give a small lethal dose. It's a potent toxin. I have taught you the potency. It's a potent toxin. Okay. If someone asks you what is the code mediation, that is beta phage coded. Okay. Now see, there is a concept from the physiology that this bacteria, this toxin, if your iron level, if the iron level is less than 0.1 mg per liter, if your iron level is less than 0.1 mg per liter, this toxin production will increase. Remember this point. This toxin production will increase. This toxin production will increase. This toxin production will increase. Okay. This is the important thing. So iron is regulating the toxin production. Iron is regulating the toxin production. Second very nice point I want to tell you, your all cells of the body are susceptible to this toxin except your RBC, except your RBC. Okay, except your RBC. Okay, so your all cells of your body will be susceptible to the action of this toxin except your RBC. So it goes for man, it goes for man, it goes for man. What is man? It goes for man. What is man? Myocardium. A for adrenals, and for nerve endings. It goes for these places. It has affinity especially for these places. Okay. So can you tell me the mechanism from your elementary cell physiology, that what is the mechanism by which it is doing the internalization? What is this mechanism called as? Receptor mediated endocytosis. Receptor mediated endocytosis. Receptor mediated endocytosis. Okay. Now question is asked in your exam that what is the way that you will be demonstrating the toxin of DT? Demonstration. How will you show the toxin DT? There is a strain which you will be using is the Park-William 8 strain. Park-William. Please make it important. Park-William 8 strain. Park-William 8 strain. Okay. What you will do, put this thing on a broth. On a broth. Okay. Now take the filtrate. Now take the filtrate. Now add formaldehyde. Now add formaldehyde. Keep this formaldehyde. After you have put the formaldehyde on the filtrate, you have to wait for 3 to 4 weeks. 3 to 4 weeks. Okay. You will get now what? If you have put the formaldehyde, this is called formol toxide. Formol toxide. Okay. If you now give aluminium phosphate, what will happen? It will get absorbed. Do you know the concept of adjuvant? Do you know the concept of adjuvant? Adjuvant means, let me tell you, if I give someone A and it produces an effect of 10 units, it produces an effect of 10 units. Now I give B and this A will give the effect of 50 units. This is the process. B is acting as adjuvant, having an additive effect. This is the adjuvant. So this aluminium phosphate is an adjuvant. Easy. Now understood the concept of adjuvant? It can be anything. Adjuvant can be anything. Your adjuvant therapy is also in the hospital when you are trying to increase the effect of something. So if I give someone A and he gets an effect, for example, 5, number of effect is 5. And now I give B, once I give B, this A gives the effect of 10, 15. Adjuvant, actually supporting something. Okay. It's easy concept, a simple English word. So this absorbed toxin which you produce, this adsorbed, you put it on a formal oxide. This is called now an adsorbed oxide. Why? Because you put the aluminium phosphate. You have given the aluminium phosphate and it has got adsorbed. You are chemistry, adsorption, adsorption. So this is the thing which you will be using in the DPT vaccine. Diphtheria pertussis tetanus toxin. DPT toxin. Guys, repeat from which place I have to repeat. Formaldehyde, I said you take a diphtheria toxide. You have to prepare a diphtheria toxin. What is this? You are preparing a diphtheria toxide, isn't it? Why you are preparing a diphtheria toxide, sir? Why DT? Because, sir, you want to give the vaccine. So how to produce? Take a parkviliamate strain, put it on a broth, grow it in a broth. Now from that broth, take a filtrate. To that filtrate, add formaldehyde. You will get what finally? Formalt oxide after waiting for 3 to 4 weeks. You have to wait. The thing which you get after 3 to 4 weeks is a formalt oxide. Now we adsorb it on an aluminium phosphate. This aluminium phosphate acts as an adjuvant. Easy? Understood the concept or not? Okay. So I want to tell you a concept, that is factors responsible for toxin production, or not responsible. We should write like this. We should write how to write, what to write. Toxin production depends on. Toxin production depends on. This toxin production will depend on, if you have a phage coated bacteria, if your bacteria is getting coated by beta corniphage, which has a tox positive gene. If it has a tox positive gene, you will say it is a phage coated, and phage coated will produce toxins. So that means toxin phage coated bacteria, beta phage coated bacteria, beta corniphage will have toxin production, isn't it? So it depends on the phage. Your iron, which we read, iron, I told you that it should be 0.1 mg per liter. That means if you have higher levels of iron, will you give the receptor? Will you depress the DT or not in the bacterial chromosome? Will you depress the DT? Yes, you will depress the DT, because I told you have less iron concentration. Less iron concentration, optimum actually. Optimum iron concentration. 4.1 mg per liter is an optimum concentration. So if you give higher levels, it will inhibit the toxin synthesis, and retrospectively vice versa, you can say. Now, there is DT repressor gene, DT repressor gene, that is called DTXR. Now this DTXR is actually it depends on iron. It depends on iron, and what is it doing? It is the regulator of DT production. So if I have to do any mischief, if I have to do any mischief with this bacteria, I should take this, play with this gene. So this is responsible for the iron uptake. So I should, I should increase. Should I increase the DTX or in a bacteria or increase? If I want to decrease the production of DT toxin, should I increase the number of DTXR genes or decrease the number of DTXR genes? I should increase the number of DTXR genes. Why, sir? Because DT repressor gene is an iron dependent. Please listen to the word iron dependent negative regulator. Iron dependent negative regulator. Iron dependent negative regulator is DT repressor gene. Increase the DT repressor gene, decrease the production of DT. We have three biotypes. We have three biotypes. Who was the three biotypes? Gravis, intermedius, mitis. Were all these biotypes producing toxins or not? They were all toxinogenic. I have told you they were all toxinogenic. But for your kind information, I want to say DT is also produced by corneal serans. DT is also produced by cornicidotuberculosis. I think I have talked about this in the previous video. Okay, understood the concept, how things are working? Let us give you a clinical edge. Let us take you the clinical edge. So can we appreciate, let me take first the manifestations, what disease it is causing. It is causing what? Diphtheria. What is diphtheria? Let us read very nicely this D3, and we'll teach you the vaccines also. Don't worry. So this is the, can you appreciate this? First, I want to tell you what disease it is causing. So if I go into the pathogenicity and clinical features, remember first thing, concept is once you have diphtheria, it is not bacteremia. It is not bacteremia. It is not bacteremia. It is what? Toxemia. It is toxemia. Second thing to understand is this is a non-invasive bacteria. It is a non-invasive bacteria. Understood? It is a non-invasive bacteria. That's why we are saying it can't be bacteremia. It is toxemia. It can produce toxin and put it in there in the blood. So what happens if I have a diphtheриal infection here in the pharynx? This is a local site infection. So you can appreciate, first thing you should remember is respiratory diphtheria. Respiratory diphtheria is the most common form of diphtheria. Okay, is the most common form of diphtheria. Okay. Second thing, human is the only reservoir. It's a human disease. How will a person get this disease? How will a person get this disease? He will get through mucosa or skin. Okay, there can be secretion of these places, so you can transmit that. Okay, mostly the age group will be around 2 to 5 year old, and incubation, how I remember, this is 2 to 5 year age, but incubation period, the time from the infection to the appearance of the first symptom, that is the incubation period. So that is 3 to 4 days. It takes 3 to 4 days to have you the symptoms. And in this, most common respiratory is the faucial. What is faucial or faucial diphtheria? Faucial means when it is involving the tonsils. When it is involving your tonsils. Okay. So tonsils and pharynx you can write. Tonsils and pharynx. Okay. So what will be the if I take the which places are affected? Most common will be nose and larynx. most common will be tonsil and pharynx, followed by nose and larynx. Nose and larynx. Okay. Now what happens? What is sir here? What you call this? What is this? It is actually a membrane, but it is not a membrane. It is a pseudo membrane, a false membrane. Why, sir? I will tell you. If I take this membrane, if I talk about this membrane, what is it actually happening? You know what happens when you have the toxin? Now, toxin, once it is there producing toxin, it will lead to an inflammatory response. So once you have toxin, we are teaching you how it is producing this membrane. So inflammatory response will happen. Now tell me one thing. This is the normal epithelium. Was the normal epithelium. No, you have a very nice blood supply. Normally you don't have anything. Now when you have a toxin, it will destroy the cells. It will destroy the epithelium. Will it lead to necrosis? Death of the cell, necrosis, and inflammatory death. Will it lead to inflammation? It is not apoptosis. Apoptosis means programmed cell death. When your cell have to die in the body, normally it does not provoke any inflammation. It silently dies and gets shed off. But here, you are having the necrosis. Okay. What happens once you have necrosis? Once something is damaging, things start coming out from the blood vessels, from the nearby things start coming out, and they form an exudate. I'll be teaching you in the second year. Just for this time, first year people, remember it's an exudate. There will be some things coming out like this. So these exudates which are coming out will lead to the formation of a pseudomembrane. This is a pseudomembrane. What is this pseudomembrane made up of? We also call it diphtheros. What? Diphtheros. What is the nature? Now the things will be asked on the nature. What is the nature? It is a leather type of a thing, a tough, leathery. What is the color? You should describe everything. It is grayish. It is grayish. It is grayish white coat. Grayish white coat. Now, if you check the inner band, inner band of this diphtheros, grayish leathery thing, if you check the inner band, it has inner bands of fibrin. Inside, inner bands of fibrin. These fibrin will be surrounded by what? These fibrin are surrounded by neutrophils. These fibrins are surrounded by neutrophils. These fibrins are surrounded by RBCs. These fibrins are surrounded by bacteria. This is the concept you should understand. Sir, why it is called a pseudomembrane? Reason, this is, we said everything about diphtheros. What is the membrane? What is everything? Why a pseudomembrane? Why a pseudomembrane? Sir, pseudomembrane, yeah, very nice. So protein rich. It is protein rich, isn't it? Protein rich. That's the exudate, protein rich. Okay. So what happens is, the pseudomembrane. Why it is called a pseudomembrane? Let us tell you the concept of pseudomembrane. This pseudomembrane is called such because it is attaching to the mucosal base. And once I try to remove this, let us show you. Once I try to remove this, the person will bleed. If I try to remove this, the person will bleed. Now tell me, do your normal membranes bleed when you remove any membrane? Normal membranes should not bleed. Normal membranes should not bleed. I'm not saying every normal membrane. I will be giving you also examples of some diseases in which no membrane is there, but you are not bleeding, like in Candida. Okay. So remember, pseudomembrane is getting attached. It is adherent to the mucosal blade base. And once you try to remove this membrane, the person will bleed. But remember a disease, same disease, that is Candida. No, candidiasis. What happens in that? There is also formation of true membrane. And once you try to in the candidiasis, once you try to remove the membrane, you won't bleed that place. So should this be called a pseudomembrane or not? Yes, beautiful answer. So sometimes what will happen, this pseudo membrane will even become so much, severe. In severe cases, what will happen, this pseudo membrane will go into the larynx and even in the bronchial airways. So will it lead to bronchial obstruction? Sometimes it will proceed, down towards the bronchial airways. Will it lead to airway obstruction? Can it be fatal? Can it be fatal? Can it be fatal? Person can die of asphyxia. Person can die of asphyxia. So should I at the time start the tracheostomy? Should I open the trachea and give an artificial intubation, artificial respiratory support? I should do a tracheostomy, and immediate tracheostomy is warranted, and immediate tracheostomy is warranted at that time. So if the pseudomembrane is getting extended to the larynx, to the medium-sized bronchial airways, it can result in an airway obstruction which can be fatal and will finally lead to asphyxia. At that time, immediate tracheostomy is warranted. So second thing you will see, there will be swelling in the neck because of edema, and that neck swelling is called bull's neck. Can you see the bull's neck? Can we see the bull's neck? Yeah. So this is the bull neck appearance. This question has been asked many times. Bull neck appearance is seen in diphtheria or diphtheros. What is the reason for this swelling? Actually, the tonsillar swelling. It is the tonsillar swelling. It is the neck edema. Okay. Is it okay? Now, if this diphtheria, I said respiratory diphtheria is the most common form of diphtheria, and that too the forcial diphtheria, where you have tonsil and pharynx involvement followed by the nose and larynx. But sometimes there will be cutaneous involvement also, the cutaneous diphtheria, which we call, this is the cutaneous diphtheria. Let us show you the cutaneous diphtheria. So this cutaneous diphtheria will be having, can you see the ulcer? This is a punched out ulcer, isn't it? The ulcer has been punched out. So this cutaneous diphtheria is showing us the punched out ulcer. And there is the area of necrosis also. There is an area of necrosis also. If I describe it, there is no membrane right now on this, but there can be rarely a pseudomembrane also. But remember, who caused this? Is it the toxin? No, it is not the toxin who caused cutaneous diphtheria. It is actually the organism who is sitting there. So remember, cutaneous diphtheria is not because of the toxin. It is not toxin mediated. It is because of the organism. If you have C. diphtheria in the skin here at this place, then you will be having cutaneous diphtheria. Okay. But do you know right now, in these years, in some books are writing that right now we said that we have forcial diphtheria commonly, but it is said that cutaneous diphtheria have become common, have become increased. Okay, and mostly to those people who are vaccinated, the vaccinated children. Why? Because vaccines have antitoxins, and antitoxins can't prevent you. Antitoxin can't prevent a disease. It is the antibodies which can prevent, isn't it? It is the antibodies which you give through the passive immunization that you are getting an immunity, a passive immunity. Okay. So what else can this diphtheria do if it is goes into the system? So if I talk about the favorite neurology, if I talk about the neurology, it will involve what? Cranial nerves. It will involve cranial nerves. It will cause peripheral neuropathy. It will cause peripheral neuropathy. Okay. It can cause even the paralysis, ciliary paralysis. If I talk about the heart, because we said, heart, so it will lead to what? Myocarditis. Myocarditis. Okay. How will you, this is all about, I think, about this pathogenesis of this bacteria. Now, if I talk about the diagnosis. So diagnosis we have learned, I think, isn't it? Diagnosis we have learned. So there will be a question in the exam. What is the most common cause of death in diphtheria? What is the most common cause of death in diphtheria? It's actually myocarditis, circulatory failure. Circulatory failure. Okay. That is the most common cause of death. Okay, easy. Now, this is all that a systemic manifestation can occur due to uh, complication. If you talk about the complication, so complications also you can write this peripheral neuropathy. Why this peripheral neuropathy? Because demyelination is happening, isn't it? Peripheral neuropathy is happening because of demyelination. And you have what? Ciliary system in your eye, you have oculomotor system, you have palatine system. These all will get paralyzed. Okay. But there is a happy news also. Sir, what will happen to these patients? They will recover. There will be a spontaneous recovery for neurological patients. For neurological complications, you will have a spontaneous recovery. Okay. So I want to now tell you the diagnosis we have learned. I think we will take the throat swab and we will put it on the Albert stain. We will do immunofluorescence. Okay. You can write that also, isn't it? So you can write that. So culture, you will be taking Loeffler, serum slow, potassium, telluride, agar. And if you want to see a toxin, there is a toxigenicity test. There is a toxigenicity test, that is, if you want to do in vivo, if you want to do the toxin test in vivo, you will be taking what? You will be taking the guinea pig. You will be taking guinea pig and rabbits. And you will be doing what? Subcutaneous. Okay. If you want to do in vitro, if you want to do the test in vitro, you will be taking what? Important point, please take a red pen. Alex gel precipitation test. Alex gel precipitation test. Okay, what is Alex gel precipitation test? You can see the diagram in your books. There is a diagram made like this. So I will tell you the simple thing about this test. You can see the diagram in the books. I don't have a diagram right now. So what you can see, you should write is an immunodiffusion assay. It is an immunodiffusion assay. Okay, it is also known as Auch-Terloni test. It is also known as Auch-Terloni test. Auch-Terloni test. What is the test called? If you want to explain, it is double diffusion in 2 dimension. Double diffusion in 2 dimension. Double diffusion in 2 dimension. So you should watch the image today. Double diffusion in 2 dimension. So you can also take ELISA. Okay, other tests what you can use? ELISA you can use cytotoxic assay, you can use PCR for which gene? Tox gene, remember, PCR for tox gene. And you can do also tissue culture assay. So see, if you want to treat now this infection, so how we'll be treating it? The most important part is, let us write like this. So once you see a patient of diphtheria like this, immediate intervention is needed. Immediate intervention. So what you will do, you will start giving the, we call it equine variety. What is equine? It is a horse serum. Okay, it is an anti-diphtheric horse serum. Anti-diphtheric horse serum. So treatment, let us take blue color. So anti-diphtheric horse serum, or it is called ADS. Okay, so it is the treatment of choice, because what it will do, it will see the toxin, this AB toxin, directly destroy it. Antitoxin will directly destroy it. Okay, now what is the role of antibiotics? I want to tell you one concept. The concept is antibiotics will be only effective. First I want to tell you how you will be giving this ADS, more detail I will be taking. If it is less than 3 years old, 3 days old, sorry. If it is less than 3 days old history, if you have a less than 3-year-old history, if you have a less than 3-year-old history, 3-day or actually old history, okay, history, he has 3 days, less than 3 days, presenting you in 2 days or something. So you should give how much dosage? We give it in international units. Okay, so the units will be 20 to some 50,000 units, I think. Okay, so 49 we should write. What you will be giving in IM, you will be giving this IM. Now if it is moderate, if it is a moderate variety, okay, greater than or equal to 3 days, you will be giving 80 to 1,20,000 units. Still I am. But if it is severe, what you will be giving, you will give, that is 80 to 1,20,000. But why, sir? We give it half IM and half IV. I repeat again, if it is a less than 3 days old history, 20 to 49,000 units, but I am intramuscular. If I have to, if it is moderate, greater than 3 days, 80 to 1 lakh 20,000 units, I am. If it is greater than, if it is severe, you have to give what? 80 to 1 lakh 20,000. But how? It is the same, but half I am, half IV, half I am, half IV. Okay, now the role of antibiotics. Antibiotics will be used. So yeah, what is the role of antibiotics if the diphtheria is early? If the diphtheria is early, means with less than 6 hours of infection, I can say. In the less than 6 hours of infection, because before 6 hours, the toxin won't be released. Before the 6 hours, the toxin won't be released, then it's an early infection. Okay, then antibiotics will be more useful. And which antibiotic is drug of choice? Drug of choice is penicillin or erythromycin. Okay, so remember, it is a minor role. Antibiotic has a minor role. Antibiotic has a minor role. Okay, so the antibiotics have a very minor role in managing the diphtheria patient. So why, sir? Because mostly a toxoid. I told you it is toxemia mostly. The concept I told you is toxemia. I did not say bacteremia. Bacteremia is not there. It is toxemia, actually the toxin. So by common sense, you only give antibiotics to those things so you can kill the bacteria. You give antibiotics to kill the living, isn't it? You kill the, so toxin, you have to give antitoxin. So but if you give the antibiotics in less than, for example, right now I got a diphtheria and I'm presenting to you less than 6 hours of infection. I'm presenting to the doctor in less than 6 hours of infection. Then only the antibiotics will have a role in managing the diphtheria. They will be more useful. So before the toxin is released, antibiotic coverage is safe. You can give the antibiotics. Okay. So what happens when you give the antibiotics before 6 hours is it won't allow the bacilli to release the toxin. It won't allow the bacilli. That I will be telling you. Okay, that you will be learning in your clinical medicine. That is what you have to understand. Right now you have to remember this. You will be learning in clinical medicine how we will be seeing. Okay, so if you are giving early before the toxin release, then we have to give. We can give the antibiotics and prevent the toxin release. That's what we are going to kill the bacteria. Okay, and it is mostly useful in the cutaneous one also, for the cutaneous vector, because we said the bacteria is on that place, so you can kill the bacteria, isn't it? Now if a carrier is present, if we have a carrier state of a patient, if we have a carrier state, then there the drug of choice is not penicillin but erythromycin. Okay, so if you want to know, so 7 to 10 days, 7 to 10 days. Or you can give 1 dose of benzathine penicillin. Benzathine penicillin you can give IM. Okay. And please remember, once you are diagnosing, once you are treating the patient of diphtheria, you are giving him the penicillin erythromycin for 14 days. You are giving the toxoid. You are giving, you are isolating. You have to isolate the patient. For your whole treatment of diphtheria, isolate the patient. Sir, what time? For full life? No, not for full life. We have to isolate the patient till his two subcultures. We will be culturing him after treatment. Na? So till his two consecutive swab cultures, swab culture, we will be seeing whether they are coming negative. Means I am treating the patient. I am giving him penicillin erythromycin for 14 days. I am giving toxoid immunization. Toxoid means this antitoxin, the toxoid you produce right now from formaldehyde. Now you are isolating the patient. Isolate the patient for your whole treatment period and till his two consecutive swab cultures, 24-hour, two consecutive swab cultures become negative. Are we able to understand? So once you get two swab cultures, consecutive two swab cultures, 24 are negative, then you will, then it's this is done. We are done with the treatment. But till that time, if you are not getting the swab negative, that is still the bacteria is there, then you have to isolate the patient. So it is actually a control. It is actually a control which is telling me you have to. Are we able to understand? Okay. Now there is a concept. There is a question always from the student's mind. Sir, now I was exposed to diphtheria. What will happen after post exposure? What will happen after post exposure? What treatment will I give? It will depend on the immunization of you. Your immunization status. Immunization status. So immunization status will tell me that, see, if you have immunized yourself, if you have immunized yourself in the last 2 years, that means today is 2021. Now 2019 you have immunized yourself. So you come in the 2 year period. So you don't have to do anything. You have already the protection inside. But if you have greater than 2 years of immunization, means you have done immunization in 2018. Then today, if you again are getting this, you have to give what? Don't have to repeat any treatment. You have to give single dose of diphtheria toxoid DT. You have to give single dose of diphtheria toxoid. Okay, easy. I related some clinical medicine with it. Okay, okay, guys. So we have a last topic, a most important topic, that is the vaccine. That is prophylaxis. Vaccine of this, which we are giving. DPT, OPV, Hep B, DPT, OPV, Hep B, DPT, OPV, Hep B. This is the word we remember every day in our medical science, in the community medicine, in the pediatrics. So everything we remember. DPT, OPV, Hep B, DPT, OPV, Hep B. This is the first dose we are giving to the newborn baby. I'll be able to understand. You can check my immunization schedule. You can learn it mostly for the second, third year people. I have made it very much easy how to remember all the vaccines. Okay, I've kept it in a in an acronym form. DPT means diphtheria pertussis tetanus, OPV oral polio vaccine, and Hep B hepatitis B. We have to give it in the what time period I have taught you in that video. So if I talk about the vaccination, please, I want your full concentration right now. A most important topic. I can't explain how much important it is. So see, if I talk about the vaccine of diphtheria, we are giving it. For example, if I talk about the prophylaxis, you will be doing what? Active immunization. You will be doing active immunization. Now, what you are giving, now tell me one thing. Once you put an antigen in your body, do you get an antibody or not? If you put a foreign antigen, not self, if you put a foreign antigen in your body, what you will get? If you put a foreign antigen in your body, you will get an antibody. That's a natural response. Now I am putting what? I am putting a diphtheria toxoid. I am putting a diphtheria toxoid. Will I produce antitoxin in my body? If I have toxin, if I'm putting toxoid, the weak form, so will I have antitoxin in my body? Toxoid, I'm putting toxoid. Will I have antitoxin? Yeah, I will have to. Okay. So what vaccines we have? We have single vaccine. What vaccines we have? We have single vaccine and we have combined vaccine. Single vaccine, combined vaccine. Single vaccine is diphtheria toxoid. Diphtheria toxoid. Why it is single? It is alum or formal precipitated. It is alum, ALUM, alum or formal precipitated. Precipitated. Okay. Combined vaccines is what? DPT, DAPT, acellular variety, and it will cause less pain to the patient. That's a different thing. DT and DT. What is the difference? What is the difference between all these? DPT, diphtheria, pertussis, tetanus, it contains what? DT. DPT contains DT. What is DT? Diphtheria toxoid. You know, these are three vaccines actually. Do we understand at least from the preliminary medical education? Do we remember from the preliminary science that DPT we have, gives protection for three things, isn't it? So this diphtheria toxoid is present in DPT. What is P? Pertussis. What is P? Pertussis. So DT is present in DPT. What is P? P is pertussis. What is pertussis? Whooping cough, isn't it? Whooping cough. So we give it a whole cell. We give it whole cell. So pertussis is whole cell. And what is T? T is TT. T is TT. So tetanus toxoid. Tetanus toxoid. No, once we are making a vaccine, we are not putting everything. We are actually taking those virulence factors. We are taking those factors which can induce antibody response in me, immune response in me. That is the major purpose of vaccination, so that I produce antibodies in my body, so that I remain protected. You are not actually infecting yourself, but you are telling the body that if a situation like this comes, you give it a dummy dose. You tell him that this is the feature of the bacteria which is coming. If you have a diphtheria, infection at that time, please produce these antibodies like right now you are producing with the vaccination. Are we able to understand? Guys, are we able to understand or not? The principle of immunity, I will be teaching you immunity separately. That will be a separate video lectures in immunology. Okay. So pertussis, whole cell and TT is present. Now what is DAPT? DAPT means it contains DT, it contains TT, but P is acellular. P is acellular. Pertussis is acellular. Can we recognize the difference? Can we recognize the difference? This is whole cell, this is acellular. I'm making a vaccine actually. So what is DT? DT is DT plus TT. DT is DT and TT. So if somewhere you see DT, remember DT plus TT. If you see DAPT, remember it has DT, TT and P. If you have DPT, DT, P, TT. So this DT is actually adult dose. It contains adult dose diphtheria toxoid plus TT. So now, D you will be making for a small child, but remember opposite, it is for adult. So D is for adult. Okay, adult dose diphtheria toxoid. It is right now a recent immunization schedule in my state. They are following it for the females, pregnant females also. So, sir, what does this contain? This TT. DT contains TT plus adult dose. Adult dose is what? 2LF. Adult dose is 2LF. Don't need to go into that detail. Just remember it contains TT. So if a patient is, if an adult is greater than 12 years old, you can give DT. If an adult is 12 years old, you can give DT, small d and d. Okay. Now let me come to the DPT. Now this is the best you are giving at the infant. Once you have a baby, you are giving it. You are giving it. Guys, why you confuse yourself? There should not be any confusion. It's the same thing I am telling you. DT contains TT plus TT. TT plus adult dose diphtheria toxoid. Adult dose diphtheria toxoid. You have to write the full name. You have to write the full name. Adult dose diphtheria toxoid. Okay. Same DT, man. DT. This same DT, but adult one. So if you write DT here, I said if you have an adult which is greater than 12 years, you can give DT. Okay. Any confusions now? Do we have any confusions now? It's simple, my dear. Simple. Don't make it complex. It's simple, straightway, just straightforward. 12 years is age. More than 12 years, you want to give DT, you have to check the age. If it is greater than 12 years, give it. Okay. So DPT vaccine is basically you are giving for the infants. You are giving for the infants. Why? Why you are giving it in infants? Can someone tell me why you are giving this DPT in infants? Why it is the preparation, best preparation for the baby? Yes. No Google things. Just think. Don't do Google and every browsing every time. This is all about the concept and knowledge. Basically, it's my dears. It's so common sense. You are giving in one. No, you are giving in one vaccine. You are giving all the three things. So you have to only give one single injection. In one single injection, you are giving immunity to diphtheria, tetanus, pertussis, isn't it? And this pertussis is doing a very nice thing. It is acting as an adjuvant. It acts as an adjuvant. Pertussis acts as an adjuvant, and the response will be very nice. More immunogenicity is involved. You will get a higher immunogenicity. That's why they made this combination. They saw that pertussis gave an additive effect. Okay. Now, if you are making a DPT, I told you above that alum extract. Now, there are actually two things. One is alum absorbed, one is flute oxide, or we call it plain formol oxide. Second is adsorbed one. So I will tell you. We know we have DPT is of two types. We have plain formol oxide, and we have adsorbed one. Adsorbed one. Or this is also called fluid oxide. Fluid oxide, or this is called alum adsorbed. Alum adsorbed. Okay, easy. Now plain formal oxide, how to produce this? You incubate the toxin with fluid. What is fluid? Formaldehyde. Formalin. You put formalin and you incubate. You incubate the toxin with formalin. That is the important thing. Plain formal oxide produced by incubating toxin with the formalin. Adsorbed one is the alum. We use an alum, and that acts as an adjuvant and will increase the toxin. Toxin will have a very nice property. It will increase the immunogenicity. It will increase the immunogenicity. Are we able to understand now the DPT? So we have two: plain formal oxide, adsorbed oxide. Plain formal fluid oxide, adsorbed, alum adsorbed. Uh, Plain formal oxide incubating the toxin with formalin. Adsorbed alum. Why? Immunogenicity increases. Okay, done. Did we understood the DPT production? Now, what are the dosages you are giving? You are giving, where do we give, by the way, DPT? At what site? What is the site where you give the DPT? Intramuscularly. Where? At the enter. This is the baby. Okay, this is the baby. This is the baby. Let us make like this. And this is the anterolateral aspect of the thigh. Anterolateral aspect. Anterolateral aspect. We'll be teaching you in the clinical videos soon. Okay, so anterolateral aspect of the thigh is the place where you will be giving the DPT vaccine. So I am rarely it is I am, yes sir. Why? Because anterolateral aspect of the thigh. You know why we are not giving it on the gluteus maximus, gluteal region? We usually give the IMs in the gluteal region. Why not right now? Because there is a beautiful concept. We don't prefer actually. Can give, but gluteal region is not preferred. Why? Because there is fat, and fat may inhibit DPT absorption. Fat may inhibit DPT absorption. So why are we giving? We are giving in the anterolateral thigh. Are we able to understand? Guys, are we able to understand? The immunization schedule, you should read it in your community medicine. Okay, because every country has its own immunization schedule. So like in some countries we have 6, 10 and 14 weeks we are giving the dose, and then we give the booster doses at 24 months, 16 to 24 months, and also at the 5 years. So you should check your immunization schedule of your own country, of your own state. So site we are giving is the IM, letter to letter aspect. Glutathione is not preferred because fat may inhibit the DPT absorption. And if you want to preserve this vaccine, we use thiomersal 0.01%. Thiomersal. How to store it? How to store this vaccine? There is a cold chain, concept of cold chain. You will be reading it in community medicine, how to store vaccines. We have in the refrigerator, we have, variations in the zones, the temperatures where we can store the vaccine, DPT, OPV, where we can store them. Okay. I'll be making a separate video in the pediatrics. People can join me in the pediatrics lecture. We'll be starting maybe in the next month. All the pediatrics will be taught. So this cold chain is the way we are storing. So DPT should be stored at what temperature? 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. Should be very nicely kept. It should not be frozen. It should not be frozen. Okay. So what does one dose contain? One dose is equal to 0.5 ml. One dose is equal to 0.5 ml. It contains, I remember a name that is Galaxo. Now Galaxo has 25 LF DT. This is for your information, just don't need to remember. 5 LF it has TT and 20,000 million it has pertussis killed bacilli. 20,000 million it has pertussis killed bacilli. Okay. So if I tell you once we are doing the vaccination, what are the reactions? What reactions can happen while doing a DPT? So if I check the mild, I classify them. Okay, I classify the reactions: mild, severe, and contraindication. Absolute contraindication where you can't give the DPT. Mild variety, mild symptom will be after you are doing the vaccination. It will be fever and local swelling, indurations. Okay, we observe these things after we are giving the vaccine. But in severe will be, once we are giving the whole cell kill. Do you remember the whole cell kill? That it can cause a severe. What? That is please remember this word, encephalotogenic. Encephalo means it is doing any neurological complication. Okay. So DPT is not recommended after 6 years of age. Remember, DPT is not recommended after 6 years of age. Recommended. I'm not saying recommended. So it can lead to neurological in severe. Which one? Cellular one. Which one? Cellular one. So where is the absolute contraindication? Means you can't give, don't have to give, even never think of giving. Absolute contraindication of DPT is a person who had received a vaccine and he got a reaction at that time, hypersensitivity reaction. So hypersensitivity reaction with the previous dose, hypersensitivity reaction with the previous dose. Or if someone is having a progressive neurological disorder, if someone is having a progressive neurological disorder or hypersensitivity to previous dose, he will be an absolute contraindication to DPT administration. Okay. Sir, which vaccine is then not having the neurological complication? It is acellular pertussis, AP. Acellular pertussis you have to use that has, that is devoid of the neurological complication and, very much likelihood of having safety in the children. Okay. There was a test, by the way, in it. I want to add this. There was a test that was Schick test. Please remember Schick test. What is Schick test? It is toxin. Please remember toxin antitoxin neutralization. Toxin antitoxin neutralization. Toxin antitoxin neutralization. But we are not using it. I'm saying you should have the concept. Toxin toxin comes with antitoxin neutralization. Okay. Now, what is this test telling me? It is telling me the susceptible individuals. What is susceptible individual? That who will develop erythema on doing this injection? Who will develop induration? Okay. Understood? We only give the vaccines to susceptible people. It is the concept of Schick test. Susceptible to erythema, people who had erythema, people who had induration on the test site. Okay, once we did an intradermal inoculation of the toxin, People develop erythema, people develop induration. So vaccine was only given to those susceptible people, but it's now obsolete. It's like not used like that. So this was all about your Corynebacterium diphtheria, and I want to add some more things, 1 or 2 points for your knowledge, and then we end the class. I want to tell you that there are also some non-Corynebacterium species which are showing similarity to the respiratory diphtheria, that is C. ulcerans. Remember, C. ulcerans is mimicking, it shows mimicry, same respiratory diphtheria it causes like the Corynebacterium, but it is a non-Corynebacterium species. So people can mimic, some organisms can mimic the infection, so you have to take care, which in that case you will be using the diagnostic test and the biochemical test, which will help you differentiating all these. Okay. And we have some animal diseases also, no need to go into that detail. Just remember for your medical point of view, because some cause in the sheep, some wool lamb, some horse, like we have pseudotuberculosis, no, Prince Nocarda bacilli. It will affect the sheep, no, sheep and horse. Like we have, I want to tell you one this C. jackium. I taught you like I think. So C. jackium is basically MD. What is MD? Multi-drug resistant. Okay, multi-drug resistant. So if a human being is immunocompromised, then you will have this infection. Otherwise not. Otherwise not. It's only in the AIDS patient. Hello. Okay. So AIDS patient. So, okay, Alrich phenomenon is what? It is telling me, first thing you should know that DT is heat labile. I taught you last time. It is heat labile, means it's a heat labile toxin. So what happens is as you know, so if I have one toxin, what is the amount of antitoxin I will need to neutralize this one toxin with time? With time is a factor. So what amount of antitoxin is required to neutralize the toxin? How much of antitoxin is required to neutralize the diphtheria toxin, isn't it? With time. The time is a factor. So as the time is increasing, the amount of DT decreases because it is heat labile, isn't it? So will it mean that the time, as the time is progressing, the amount of antitoxin which I need to neutralize will also get reduced? The time, no, with the time, the amount of antitoxin which is required to neutralize will also get reduced, isn't it? Isn't it? I'm saying the amount of antitoxin which is required to neutralize the diphtheria toxin with time. As the time is increasing, diphtheria amount is decreasing because it is heat labile. Because it is heat labile, isn't it? So with the time, the amount of antitoxin required to neutralize will also get reduced. It will also get reduced, isn't it? This is the phenomenon. It's a common sense. Just 2 lines, play with these. The amount of antitoxin required to neutralize diphtheria toxin with time, as the time is increasing, DT amount decreases because it's heat labile. So with the as the time is the amount of antitoxin which you are needing, which you need to neutralize, will also get reduced, isn't it? Because effect is getting effect. DT, I'm taking DT is toxin, please. DT is toxin. DT is a toxin. First you should know this is a toxin. We are talking about toxin and antitoxin. So as the time, antitoxin and toxin will get reduced. So it's easy. So we are done with Corynebacterium. So thank you very much for your time. And I hope you have enjoyed this lecture. I have finished all the points required for your medical licensing exam and your MBBS first year, second year level, your undergraduate level. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please subscribe. I'll be making more videos like this on all the subjects of MBBS, and clinical videos with med mnemonics will be coming soon. So stay tuned with this channel, and thank you. Have a nice day. God bless you and bye bye.